All right. Hello, Nevada County. This is David Clark Carroll with the Nevada County Tech Connection. We're a project of the Nevada County Economic Resource Council, really tasked with looking at how technology and business intersect in Nevada County. We've talked to a lot of cool folks over the last couple of years, from people at the hospital talking about the high-end diagnostic imaging equipment they have there, to Conrad Sisk over at the Center for the Arts. That fantastic stuff they installed with their whole upgrades. I'm real pleased tonight to be joined by Ryan Cassano. He is local guy wearing a couple different hats, but we got him on to talk about Fanmood, which, to quote the website, is a continuous engagement platform. I'll let him get into a little bit more about exactly what that means. But we were really excited to have him on because one of the things the Economic Resource Council does is helps people navigate getting businesses off the ground. And while Ryan still has a full-time gig, he's been really just engaged getting this cool idea off the ground. And really pleased to have him on here. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us on TechTonic TV.
Thanks a lot, David. I really appreciate you having me. It's great. So
now, one of the things we always like to kind of get started with here is, how did you get to this point where, you're working in the tech field and you had a great idea and you've managed to really balance them and make things happen. But what did it take to get to this point,
Yeah. So I didn't really ever think about starting a business necessarily. I started my job in 2006. I had previously done IT and web consulting before that. So I had a taste of self-employment. And after a year or two, I ran away because I was spending more time chasing people down for money than I was doing the job that I enjoyed. So when I got back into kind of the 9 to 5, everything was great and really enjoyed that. But then my kids started to get older. And I've got a really good friend, old friend and colleague who's down in San Francisco. He's been a developer for over 20 years, data engineer, full stack. He's gone through the full gambit. So we would start spending time during the week, and we would call it coding night. And really a lot of it was just him kind of running through. I had some technical background for web development, things like that, but it had fallen off, my skills and all that. And I wasn't really interested necessarily in web design. I was more interested in software in general. And part of that too was also because of how much I saw in healthcare. Like that was just such an eye opener of just like how much need there is. And I know that everyone's said that because it's true. And so that got me kind of thinking about it. Like there's a lot of low hanging fruit and some interesting things. And one big marrying point of kind of like my interest in what he was working on is that he was very data driven, was working on these cloud solutions and things were very new. And so I was kind of stepping in, trying to sort of keep up with that. So anyway, that's kind of what got me interested in product development at large. We worked on a couple of projects. We had we won an Innovators Challenge Award in 2014 for a productivity microservice that we put together using 2 data sets, just for kind of proof of concept. So that was super cool. But as time went on, I realized that the sales path for healthcare is just so uphill. Like everyone loves ideas, but when you actually start that sales path or want to talk to people, it's a very long time from a yes to implementing and things like that. So I started to get kind of frustrated and falling back to maybe some more fun, easier to attain ideas. So that, kind of from 2013, when I got more interested in that up until a couple of years ago is really when I started to get more committed to the idea. So that's kind of like a lead up to where I'm at this moment, at least. Anything else I can offer to that?
So when you were coming up with ideas in the healthcare sector,
yeah,
you're really trying to, was it partly because you were seeing things that you think could have gone easier, could have been done differently, and you were trying to offer solutions?
Absolutely.
Or were you trying to, yeah?
Yeah, it was that. I mean, it was just, and I don't want to get too far down this road, but like the quick and dirty version is that, all of our migrations towards electronic health records and things like that, which is great.
Yeah.
It's great that we need to have those mandates, but they came a little bit early. And so a lot of these big EMRs that came in are kind of built on older enterprise platforms, which is fine. They're moving towards cloud, it's all fine. But what happened is that as we're rolling out kind of the stuff that was already seemingly kind of aged by the time it even arrived, at least in terms of like some of the software infrastructure stuff, I'm looking at all these things happening that are like doable and feasible from a technology perspective and thinking, well, geez, if we, did this that way, and if we set up a system for that and just started to get really interested in the space that I was working in. And I was doing some pitch stuff to some executives for Dignity Health, which was great. And they had a lot of great feedback, and we worked on some ideas too. But again, it's a big organization, and you're sort of at the mercy of budgets and competing agendas and things like that. But yeah, it was very much like, geez, if people could do ... I mean, a big one was just the customer experience, the patient journey, the tools and stuff that healthcare are given by government agencies and regulation and things like that are pretty limited. And healthcare organizations have to really like make it work their own way. And so between kind of working with my buddy and seeing all this stuff unfold, it got me really motivated and interested, at least in the space. And I just wanted to learn as much as I could about the developer world and software in general. So that was kind of the build up before I got into any like product stuff or business at this point.
And now we're talking almost 8 years now since then you decided to really embrace it as, on your own time, more a passion of what you're interested in as opposed to what your job is about.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was a very different world, and it was convoluted for a little while there. And I was working with Dignity Health, kind of explaining that, like, hey, I've got these product ideas, and I think a lot of it has to do with programs and timing, for that stuff to be in place.
Now, have you seen in those 8 years any of the things that you were trying to address become embraced, been done, and shaking your head and think, well, we could have been ahead of the curve?
No, not specifically. Here's what I've seen. Here's the shift. The shift is, oh, we trust the cloud. We trust these solutions or these ideas.
Okay.
That's the big shift. And that's the breakthrough, because as soon as you get that barrier down, I think executives and decision makers feel the freedom to be like, oh, okay, we can tackle that now. So, specific solutions, no, but in terms of like embracing the way that things need to move, and if we're ever going to tackle health data exchange problems, it needs to be thought of that way. So I'm happy to see that for sure. That's a major improvement.
It's just such a great example of, you never know what is going to break through that wall of setting your ways, and this is the way we do it.
Yeah.
It's almost never what you think it's going to be.
Right.
But
well, in our case, we had a merger, and there's really no stone that can be unturned in that case. And so I'm sure that was a huge motivator too. But I also know that healthcare organizations are working that way anyway, one way or another, they'll get to that. And part of it too, and then I'll be quiet about the whole story. But, as you get younger staff and talent in there, they have different expectations when they come in. So when we would onboard someone who was older, it's very, everything seems very normal. And then you might get a younger person in who's asking, well, where's the smartphone? Where's the this? And and it's stuff that we're like, oh, well, we're working on this thing, it's all coming. But that's another motivator too, is that they see this shift in the workforce. So you have to adapt as you go. So they're working on it. And there's a lot of exciting stuff out there too, in the tech space for healthcare. So I'm super excited about where it all goes.
It's cool to see you still be passionate about your day job, because I think that's one of the things I really dug digging into your story and reading the article Jennifer wrote, was realizing, no, he's actually balancing work, cool ideas, which so many times it's just like we catch someone after they've either struck big or moved on. And it's cool to talk to someone at this stage in developing an idea.
Yeah, I feel a great deal of responsibility for all those things that I kind of take on. And healthcare is important to me, not only because it's what I've been doing for so long, but I also just, it's obviously an important thing for the sake of the world. And the the way that I see people going out and helping people every day, I mean, it's like super inspiring. And then the other thing that comes up is, or did come up, of course, is the pandemic, which absolutely shifted everything. And so that becomes an even more important mission. So even though I'm not putting my hands on the patients and things like that, I got to make sure that staff are able to do their job and meet our missions. And then all this other stuff is like super fun too, and it's like the first thing I think about when I get up in the morning. So it's great. It's great to have stuff to focus on.
Well, let's switch over to talking about some of this fun stuff. And you know, you wrote up this just really lengthy outline for the article and for us to work off, and just gave us so much info to work on. And there's a line you put in here that I just loved, which was the Genesis idea was an app that sports fans would use to root and emote about games as they unfolded in real time. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I love that idea where you're trying to connect people who are so passionate about something and give them a platform to just really get wild on.
That's absolutely right. I mean, kind of what I saw was that I was doing what you just described in about 5 different places. Like I really enjoyed live tweeting during games once in a while. And I'm not like a watch every game guy, but it was fun to like interact with my network during games. But the problem was like, well, where's the playback? And I want to go back to this quarter when this happened. Oh, and I also want to see when the other fan base was suffering, or some other rib instinct that you have, watching something like a sporting event. And I started thinking about, it would be really great if you could compare the fan bases, because that's the ultimate motivator. Like, really, you're going to let them be louder than we are? That kind of a provocation. And so that was kind of the genesis, where it was like, maybe it's like a mood remote control or something that people can kind of interact with, call out the referees or the umpires in real time type stuff, which we already do right now, right? But again, I was just really unimpressed with the tools. But again, it evolved kind of after that, because it wasn't just sports. I realized that this is just kind of, and it seems obvious when you say it, but it's like people do this all the time about everything. And there really is no stopping Fanmood. It's around then that I realized that it's something that like is really more lives inside of us, that I'm trying to describe or manifest somehow, but really it's already something that lives inside of you. And it's why I can show it to someone and they know what to do, right after you watch a movie, here's Fanmood, they're like, oh yeah, ... And that's great, because I feel like I'm able to kind of tap into that instinct. And then also just better reflection tools, for ourselves and this technology that we use, and how does it change us over time? And also just stopping to remember that there's so many great things in this world that bring us together that, isn't always obvious. And that's like what I love most about the idea of Fanmood, is just like that sense, like the exuberance of wanting to promote things that you love or think are great or think someone would like. And then also to kind of process things and like disappointment and, being really frustrated. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I was like really like, I don't want to say emotionally wounded, but like struck by the last Indiana Jones film. And I couldn't stand it. And I like dwelled on it. It was like my childhood. And I'm sure there's people out there who love that movie. That's fine. No judging. But that was like a kind of a reflection point where I was like, why am I dwelling about this movie that I didn't like? Like 5 days later, it was like processing something. So those are the things that would kind of nag at me, that I felt like were always loose ends, and I really didn't have any kind of a capture tool or, any way to sort of play any of that back. So,
For some reason, what comes to mind when you said that was, I wish there was something like this, or even Facebook, when the Phantom Menace came out. Oh. It was that moment of like, I grew up on the original Star Wars and loved them. Yeah. And then here comes the Phantom Menace. And it's like the fact that you couldn't reach out to the whole world and be like, okay, everyone else thinks this is terrible too, right? Like, is it
Right.
just me?
It,
Uh,
it was like that because the internet was around, but no social media. It certainly wasn't the way that it is now. And you're right. And there was also some denial that went on with that movie. Um,
well,
you know,
because you had to pay for it. Like movies were expensive. You weren't
sure.
streaming them. You had to go sit in the theater,
Yeah.
pay a whole lot for popcorn, and then leave and be like, did I just waste my money?
Right.
I think I just wasted my money, but like, I don't want to be the only guy who wasted my money.
Right. The person that comes out, you're the one per because they do that, right? It's like in the old days, they got the person with the microphone out there and they're asking people as they come out. And then there's the one person that comes out that's like, boy, that was awful. And geez, I had casting. I don't even know what they were thinking. They cut away really quick. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Movies are a great use case because for the same reason you just mentioned, you'll see something and you'll feel a certain way. You're not even really sure. And then the next day you might feel differently. And then 10 years, you might feel differently again. And so that may not seem important to us now, but over time, I think it might. And especially if we can compare that to other things that we're interested in. Like what does our fandom tapestry look like? You know, if my fandom is a jet, what does the contrail look like? Kind of a thing. I mean, I almost think that fandom is almost like a fingerprint or its own DNA pattern. It really is unique. You could line up Star Wars fans and they wouldn't all love Star Wars or be the exact same fan, and I think that that's really interesting. But yeah, Phantom Menace, that took a while to process. But again, now that the new content's coming out for Star Wars, people think differently about the Phantom Menace, or maybe not the Phantom Menace, but that era, I don't want to go too far. That era, rings differently because of things that have happened since then. And I think that's really interesting. So,
Well,
um,
I'm going to stand by my original opinion of the Phantom Menace
hmm.
strongly.
Now, what you
Uh,
what you could have done with Fanmood back then is you would have said that you were eager about it before it came out, and then when it
yeah,
came out, you would have put annoyed or disgusted, maybe neutral because you're not sure. You could have worked your way back, and that would have been kind of cool to like see that difference.
so you've got this great idea going. Now, you'd already been doing some product development with your friend from San Diego. How did you get from you've got some ideas to this is now a website? Before COVID hit, you were going to work with the Nevada City Film Festival. Um, how, how did this get off the ground?
So in 2019, because I had been kind of working on different stuff for so long and feeling a little bit like I need to maybe look at something else besides healthcare, I decided that 2019 would be the year that I committed to the idea of Fanmood. And that's because it had been like the rock rattling around in my brain for a while. My friend in San Francisco was busy. That we weren't on the same page in terms of the schedule and things like that. So really, it was kind of like look around the room and how are you going to do this? So the first thing I did was start experimenting with some POC type forms and just using like basic web available tools to do that and observing. So my first order of business, again, because it had started off with sports, was observing my friend watching football. And I would kind of document, what he was doing as he was watching it. And from that, I was developing mood ranges and experimenting with things like that. And that's something that my team, we kind of looked at that kind of early on as like, what is the mood? But really had no software to show for it. So using the POC apps, I spent most of 2019 kind of in kick tires mode and was trying out my proof of concepts at the beer festival in Truckee. We went on vacation to Mexico. And so without a developer or anything like that, that was kind of the starting point, is just trying to learn. Nevada City Film Festival, we were fortunate enough. I've got a relationship with them. I've known them for a long time, great people. They were looking for something unique for their 2020 event. And again, this is still pre-COVID. And I had fan mooded the 2019 film festival and shown it to the director afterwards. and then brought it back up like, hey, let's try it out this year. And they agreed. So that was super exciting. And that's when I realized, okay, I actually need a developer. So through my network and friends, fortunately, I've got a lot of friends, talented friends, was able to connect me with someone who's up in Truckee. And by this time also, I was working with a friend of mine who I knew here in town. So we kind of had a team of 3 and really get everything going for the Nevada City Film Festival that fall. So that's really when we started to kind of break ground on actual product. Up until then, it was just documenting, a lot of prototyping, and still trying to get my sea legs on how serious I am in strategies and things like that. You realize just how quickly, how much you don't know very fast. And so it was a little bit of feeling things out. And then after everything, we had agreed to everything for 2020, that's when COVID hit. And so we kind of went into a holding pattern for the whole year, not the whole year, but the whole summer. And basically just started to have the developer chipping away at things. We came into a couple of small boons during the process because one of the fellows I was working with, who was a designer, was actually offering COVID rates. And so we got a discount on our interface and like got deals through this, like, this crazy time. So that I super appreciated that. So we got cut some breaks between having a willing client who's effectively agreeing to a napkin drawing, for lack of not much more to show for by that point, more conceptual. And then also just the luck in, landing some resources at the right time, at the right price, that we were able to actually get this thing off the ground for the 2020 Film Festival. So that was it. That was the start.
So from nothing to, you did the film festival, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now you have a great line in this outline you sent us that I just got to share because it's just too great. Afterwards, we were handed a check, but had no actual business. So what did it take to make an actual business?
It's so, yeah, and that's true. So I had my old business, but that obviously wasn't what I was trying to like reboot. So I had an old DBA. And so I wasn't really sure how that was going to be handled at the end of it. And they gave me the check and it was for Fanmood. And it's like, oh, there is no Fanmood. So I had done a little bit of research before that, and I had started, and this is actually a good lesson for folks who are actually looking at forming a business entity. And it depends on what you want to do. There's a lot of variables, but in my case, I started an LLC because I was imagining, well, I'm eventually going to bring on partners, or there's going to be a group here. But then by that point, and so I was able to cash the check. Great. But not long after that, through some mentors and different people that I was talking to, they were like, well, if you ever decide that you want to get funded, you're going to need to be able to take on, stock and things like that. You need to be a corporation. And so I ended up converting my business about 8 months later to the corporation. And there's even mixed feedback on when you should do that. In fact, when I got that, I got kind of an opposing, opinion. So a lot of ways to do things. But that was a big lesson learned kind of on that entity piece. And that also kind of forced my hand on the business stuff. It's like, okay, well, and then, the big tell was that the film festival said, okay, well, we'll see you next year. And it's like, oh, okay, well, then I guess there's going to be a next year. And that's when it, kind of started diving a lot more deeply into, like I mentioned, the business formation stuff, things to consider. I'm working with a team of people, are we developing a partnership? What are we having all of the agreements in place? Like when I start working with the developer, those are things that you don't want to skimp on. So those are like, no one ever wants to hear talk to a lawyer, but you should talk to a lawyer. The other big thing that I was bent on was not going broke doing it. So this idea was a little bit two pronged in that I saw kind of a people side and I saw a business side. And so the strategy is kind of like, well, let's see if we can find a way to solve business problems, which we have experience doing in other capacities, to try and pay some bills. And then we can kind of, help develop more of the consumer side. And so most of late last or at the end of that year was kind of trying to get all that together, finding an attorney, trying to get mentorship, reaching out to the ERC, Sierra Small Business up in Truckee's great resource too. So what I was so impressed by was just how much there is out there. I mean, it's really easy to pull up Google and you can find a lot of great stuff, which has been part of my education. You don't have a choice if you're just trying to learn on the fly. But the local resources have been fantastic. And I can't encourage people enough to lean on that. You'd be surprised at how much, people can help you and want to help you. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but like when you're kind of going like, hey, how do I, and people are enthusiastic, it's great. So I'm super happy with what I see happening around here to help people like me.
I think that's one of the kind of unique features of the Nevada County tech landscape is just how it feels more collaborative than competitive.
No question. I went to some meetups and it was it was exactly like that. It felt just kind of we're all here to learn and have fun and, no weird attitudes or, kind of hiding their screen. I don't know. Sometimes you can get weird energy at meetups. But no, I got that too. I absolutely agree. Great people.
Now, in addition, so got your business going, you're incorporated as an actual incorporation,
right?
Reached out to Sierra Small Business, reached out to ERC. So now you're up and running. What was kind of your goal at that point of building the business? What type of clients were you looking to work with and build a business?
That's great. That's a great question. And the answer to that is that it depends on the week. No. But it kind of is like that. You're taking things in waves. I mean, for example, at the end of our first iteration, we could have said, well, we're going to be fully committed to film festivals. But with COVID and all that, it's hard to invest into on-site live people, anything. And we also knew that there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of verticals in a lot of different areas. So the strategy at the start of last year was to kind of work local, think global. Like, how do we solve problems for our community that we can learn and possibly scale for bigger clients or things outside of this area? So we kicked tires on some local clients last year, really just asking, kind of talking about the product and trying to gauge interest. And then in summer of last year, and we were kind of struggling, we're still kind of working through things and everyone's of course got a job to do. Sierra Theaters was looking for a marketing person. And so I basically applied as my company. And so I went in there and just kind of pitched on the idea of the things that I can help with and some new ideas that might help them with their theater. And they were super interested. They had kind of come out of a very long, hard year. And I have such a love for movie going. And, no joke, I'm like, I've always wanted to work in a movie theater. Like I want to work with the movie theater. Like, it's just, I don't know. I love the experience. And so they just made such a great natural partner. So we started working with them last summer as kind of a monthly contract, and that's been fantastic. Have learned a tremendous amount. I mean, to kind of answer your question, the strategy really was to really get in front of customers, get in front of clients and learn. Part of what we want to do is hear what the real world problems are. I don't want to walk in and say, here's what you need and shove everything across the desk. I want to come in and hear, what are the problems? Yeah, sure, we have all this great stuff and we should evaluate that, but we need to learn too. So from that perspective, it's been a great mutual partnership, and it's really poised us to kind of get better to take the next step. So I think we're still in kind of the strategy of working in different markets and different clients and really getting different flavors. And then I think from that point, it'll kind of help narrow us down to, maybe a targeted launch of some kind. But I think events are huge, conferences and things like that. But again, more to learn and to find out. We've been surprised by things that we never thought about that, comes out of things that we're doing. Like, geez, I didn't realize people would like this so much. Then there's other things that you roll out in front of people and you know that they're just going to be singing praise and, you know, kind of yawning and, you know, get up and get a cup of coffee, you know, nothing that bad. But they don't always cling to things, right? So a lot of it is a little bit of experimentation. But part of our strategy too, again, is to not get out over our skis when it comes to money and all that. Don't overdevelop. We're not trying to build a battleship. You know, we're trying to stay nimble and alert. So, so yeah, I think this year it's again just kind of growing that network and opportunities, which I feel pretty good about.
I mean, so we've talked about a couple of the people you worked with, the film festival and movie theater. The ERC had you guys do the economic summit last fall, little survey afterward. Have you been able to branch out and do more in-person events like that since then?
Well, so what we have at the theater right now is we have some on-site QR codes. So there's QR codes sitting at the theaters right now for a couple of things. One thing is that you can rate your theater experience. And you can browse to a URL. There's also a QR code. We provide QR codes for everything on Fanmood, but if needed. And then they also have QR codes on the coming soon posters, which point to a landing page where people can express their anticipation about a movie coming out. Phantom Menace, right? Eager. Because they're trying to find out kind of what everyone's excited about. And then, you know, the other posters is kind of rating the experience. And then we also have the follow-up emails, you know, if people have gone to see things, because that's kind of the traditional world. I'm kind of trying to get away from the, hey, take a survey after it's all over. It's more about the take a survey as you go when you're done, you know, type of thing. So for the movie theater, I'm sorry, I go back to your question on direction after that. For
are you guys looking to do, or have you had an opportunity to do more like one-off events like the economic summit?
Thank you. For those, for a business, no. But there's a bunch of things in the queue. And part of what we're learning too is, you know, what's effective for the client. So it's kind of a joint learning experience. And one thing that they like working with us is that they see that we're able to provide something that's pretty modern to whatever it is that they're doing. Something that sits outside of social media or Yelp or other things that smaller mid-sized businesses may not know as much about or have an interest in, or they're kind of exhausted by it. And so being able to, you know, provide alternatives for those things, I think goes a long way. And they're also interested in their own audience. You know, I kind of make the joke about the rando from Orlando, you know, Google review. And this is more like you feel like, hey, this is someone who came through my theater. But I would like to do a lot more true on site because it's such a concentrated period of time. And I think that's when things can really pop. A lot of the stuff that we're doing with businesses is kind of a slower burn where we're kind of learning together. But I think that's great. I think if they're learning from us and we're learning from them, no harm can come to anybody. So it's been great. And yeah, I think events, especially as COVID becomes less of a concern as time goes, will be huge, you know, especially event coordinators when they're trying to have eyes on the ground. You know, you've got 3 restrooms across a park or something at a music event, and you've got all the staff, you know, and you've got all these people doing different things. It'd be nice to have a little bit of a command center, if you will, so that you can actually like be made aware of things before it's too late. Launch into some kind of service recovery or things like that. Instead of getting that in the post follow-up, why they won't be coming back next year.
That's a whole nother angle on what you're capable of doing this with. You know, the whole idea of you're getting feedback from someone at a 20,000 person music festival in real time.
Right.
And it's not, you're not reliant on, you know, Zuckerberg's algorithm to eventually show you the comment that someone made 3 hours ago, 12 hours ago, 24 hours ago.
Yes.
Everything's there.
Yeah, we want to deliver, I call it near real time because I don't really believe in real time. I call it near real time because, yeah, it's stuff that they want to be able to see and analyze in short order. And you can always dig deeper in a post-mortem, you know. But if you're made aware, all of a sudden you get a text message or an email that 3 or 4 people have rated the restrooms poorly in a short period of time, you might go, what's going on at the restrooms? So things like that. I think that Fanmood's useful as being kind of a passive listener, like you're some of your eyes and ears for you when you're not around. But yeah, I mean, between feedback, visual customer journeys, learning more about your audience and what it is that they want. And really what we're exploring is the mood layer, which right now doesn't really exist. It exists in, hashtags and sentiment analysis. If you want to port in all the social media and, the running joke is all the data. If you want to get all the data in and put it back together, sure, you can do that with the time and resources, or you can just ask someone a question where they care about the answer and they're usually pretty quick to tell you. So I don't know. I just wonder if there's better, more organic ecosystems for these types of problems.
I think what struck me what you just said, there's so many platforms right now, right? It's like you're never sure where someone's going to share their opinion about what you're doing.
Right.
But if you've got this whole thing where there's and this is what Gil really loved about the economic summit, you've got these QR codes everywhere. People have the ability to quickly and easily react. They're not like having to scroll, they're not having to search, be like, is that the profile? Is that the page?
Right.
It's there, they scan and they're there.
Right.
And I think that's powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful. And I know that QR codes have been around for a long time, but my informal evaluation of most of them is that most of them are pretty boring. They just kind of point to like a brand's website, whatever. It's not very functional stuff. Like the most functional thing I could think about is like a digital menu. So QRs have kind of made a comeback, probably because of less touching and things like that. But yeah, it is powerful. I mean, that's part of the experiment, which is like, well, if you just kind of do it as you go, you get a copy of that. It's like when you're talking about all these apps and things that you're using, the average social media user has, I think, 9 accounts, and that's just social media. All of that belongs to you as the person who left it there. Really, it belongs with you. It's like, no, nothing really changes about, well, I mean, things can change, but David's the same, but the apps and all this stuff, changes over time. And I'm kind of the mind where it's like, man, I don't feel like giving you all that, but I'm really interested in like making note of it for myself and maybe learning a little bit something about myself eventually.
Well, and that's, like we started with the Fanmood as a continuous engagement platform. And I think we've really been narrowing here the last couple of minutes in what is continuous engagement.
Right. Exactly. So when we do that stuff now, it's all tap, very disposable, and it's gone. But if, it's not just social media. You're text messaging your friends. I have friends who we go back and forth about TV shows. It's like almost all we talk about in text messages. I have friends that text message me every time LeBron makes a dunk. Like I need to get a text message every time that happens, right? It's like, no, tell that to my Fanmood. That's not, it's not my phone. It doesn't belong there. And then again, just having that lack of reflection and playback, sort of a big thing. So for continuous engagement, we're trying to develop, kind of a living system that's designed to change with you. It's not meant to be edited or deleted. It's meant to be changed or updated. And if we can maintain that fandom state over time, we can develop some really interesting, stories, I think. And hopefully people, have better insights into things that of their own interests and how these things impact them. So that's my hope.
I mean, I would find it interesting to see how my opinion on some things like that has changed over the years. Because, with the Phantom Menace case, it hasn't. But with other things, I used to love Fight Club. If you looked at a chart of my opinion of Fight Club over the years, it's, slowly dropping.
A little bit of a slow decline.
Not everything ages great,
Right, sure. And, that's a great example. You're probably very excited about Fight Club. Everyone I knew was way into Fight Club when it came out.
Like really into it.
Yeah, I still really love Fight Club, but yeah, exactly. It's like if you kind of, one of my big things that I went through was a metamorphosis over the MCU, the Marvel Universe. Was so excited about Iron Man in 2008, and then around 2014 or something, I don't know. I just started to notice that my interest was waning, and like this is just a little too much for me, and I don't know. It's like things were different later. And, I imagine if a business wanted to know that about me now, they wouldn't. What they'd know is, in 2008, he was really excited. And we hope that he still is. I don't know. That's maybe a bad example, but, I would like to have that over time. And sports is another great use case for that too, because you can develop stories over time of different seasons, where you can almost like have these mood charts for these different seasons, but for different games. So, I think that would be a lot of fun for sure. So
there's a lot of potential directions to grow, it sounds like. What are you looking at, just let's say the next 6 months to a year of what are you looking forward to putting Fanmood to work with?
Well, I think that again, because we're kind of getting more and more embedded with the local businesses and stuff like that, it would be great to work with, again, more local businesses to kind of learn their problems, get our onboarding tools and things that we need to get developed. One area of focus that I would love to focus on is, as you already mentioned, which is events. And the reason that I like starting with events is because it's such a compact, it's a perfect microcosm of an experience. You sort of have an anticipation level beforehand. Maybe you have no anticipation. And then it's going to evolve or change or move through time. And at the end of it, you have like this really concise story. So I think that events and things like that make more sense for us out of the gate, because again, it's just easier to kind of learn within those confines. But I see complete value in, software type subscriptions. We're still working on our feature set and things like that. And those are all big questions to be tackled too. Those are all the things that like fall out of our direct wheelhouse, where I'm like, who am I going to talk to about this problem? And that stuff will never change. That's part of the beauty of the challenge, I guess. So yeah, I think focusing on events and really developing our network is kind of a good priority for this year.
Were you able to go back and do the film festival second year, and then?
Yes, we were.
And then are you on track for this year?
Yeah, as far as I know. No, and we haven't formally agreed to that, but I'm hopeful that's true. It's been kind of a bummer, because I was looking forward to last year of doing an in-person and virtual hybrid, because I'm like, oh, great, we've got this, on site, and we've got this virtual. But unfortunately, they ended up going all virtual because, still have an abundance of caution. But yeah, I think that once people, we kind of get back to that spot where events, and also what I'm finding too with the people that I talk to is that event coordinators are usually the most starving for this type of tool, because it's such rich data compared to what they're doing otherwise. And again, most of it is done on the post, and how much can you really act on based on the feedback, which is a problem everywhere. It's not just unique to them. And so yeah, I think that would work well. And we're also developing relationships with some of these vendors so that we can kind of like coordinate with them. Like if we do another film festival that uses this, a web video host vendor, hey, we worked with you guys before, and here's our code, and make things as reusable as possible. So yeah, I'm excited about this year.
That's pretty awesome. Hopefully you get a chance to put that hybrid to work at the film festival this year, or hopefully just all in person, really.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if they'll keep with online or just do the in person. It kind of remains to be seen.
That's the conversation everywhere.
It is
TechTonic TV too. It's
yeah.
What's the future? And
right. Well, yeah. I mean, we're going to have a follow up after this, and we'll talk about some use cases for you guys, because I already got a few.
Very cool. I mean, I think I don't want the cat out of the bag, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential for Fanmood technology to be put to work here in Nevada County.
Yeah, that's great.
I think we're running a little bit close to the end here, and I'm running a little bit out of the questions I had prepared here, but
Oh,
this
sure.
has been really fun, Ryan.
Well, thank you.
It's
Yeah, it has been a lot of fun. I'm sorry I'm a little like rambling sometimes, but you just kind of get going on ideas. But yeah, it's great. We'll have to do it again at some point.
well, and that's kind of the whole, Tectonic Tuesday started as a speaker series, but no one really wants yet another speaker talking at them at the computer. So I
Right,
mean, the whole idea is, we can't have tech and tonics and networking beforehand. So we just do the networking and talking,
right,
and
right,
everyone gets to enjoy,
right.
hopefully.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but this was a really cool TechTonic TV, Ryan. If anyone tuned in late and was wondering who I've been talking to, this has been Ryan Cassano of Fanmood. Real cool new company out of Nevada County, which is just awesome to see some real new ideas happening there. If you're a local business looking for customer feedback, looking for engagement in your products, talk to Ryan.
Yeah, that'd be great. And just a warning for those, if anyone's taking a look at the site, we are in beta. So I like to always mention that because we're still in development. And if you guys have any thoughts or anything, you're welcome to reach out to us and let us know. So, and that's coming up here soon too, is user beta groups, which I'm anxious for.
Very
So,
cool. Well, don't take my word for it, but you mentioned you got some COVID rates from your developer. Maybe some folks out there can get some beta rates.
yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what we have to do. You're absolutely right. It's like, we're working on this stuff and this is what we can deliver. And yeah, exactly. It's something that's mutually beneficial because it's more important to me to, again, develop those relationships and learn about those problems than worrying about everyone's budget or whatever. So always open door for anyone, even just to kick tires and talk through ideas would be great.
Well, hopefully we'll have you back on another year or so, and you can give me grief for all the companies you had to give discount rates to because of me. Again, thanks so much. I'm David Clark Carroll with the Nevada County Tech Connection. We've been chatting with Ryan Cassano. This was TechTonic TV.